This is Little Green Ghouls, and welcome back to Goosebumps Revisited, a series where we break down a classic Goosebumps book and the episode that goes along with it. I will also be telling us for Goosebumps cliches and classic moments. This week, I'm excited to visit Ghost Camp. I had never read this book, and the comments of my last video hyped it up a bit, and for good reason, because this was another solid camp story. Stein knows how to write a fun camp story, that's for sure. I don't think it's as strong as Welcome to Camp Nightmare or the horror at Camp Jelly Jam, but it's right up there with them. I definitely recommend checking this one out if you haven't yet. I think this 1996 cover is pretty decent. My only real complaint is that both the title and the cover image kind of give away the story. That was really my only complaint about this book in general, is that it could have been more subtle in getting started. I do like their little uniforms though, and how the one ghost is a floating hair bow and earrings if you look closely. The 2003 slime border is one of the few cases where I like the color combo better. I think it also benefits from a more zoomed in look on the ghost. The image is also just a tad bit darker overall, which makes it easier to see the details in the illustration. There was again no later 2000s cover, but there was a fair bit of merchandise this week. We have another one of these trading card book tearouts that I always enjoy getting to see. We also have this 100-piece puzzle of the cover art, one of these lithographs that we occasionally see, but more interestingly, we have a full-on beach towel featuring the cover art, and I'm curious why this one was chosen for that honor. And I almost forgot to mention this pair of shoes that also feature a take on some of the art from Ghost Camp. Like last week, I found some of these concept sketches for the cover art that I thought would be fun to share. In this case, I like the cover art they went with because it has all the campers marching in a line. Our front take says, "Be all that you can't see," which is a play off the phrase, "be all that you can be." I like this one because it makes me think of those motivational posters that were popular when I was a kid. Our back take says, "The joke's on them." And I kinda get why this was chosen, since a lot of the ghostly moments in this story are played off as pranks initially, but let's read the blurb on the back. Harry and his brother Alex are dying to fit in at Camp Spirit Moon, but the camp has so many weird traditions, like the goofy camp salute, the odd camp greeting, and the way old campers love to play jokes on the new campers. Then the jokes start to get really serious, really creepy, really scary. First a girl sticks her arm in the campfire, then a boy jabs a pole through his foot. Still, they're just jokes, right? Okay, on to our summary. The book opens with our introduction to Harry and his younger brother Alex, who are headed via bus to Camp Spirit Moon. This bus ride's a little odd because they're the only kids on this bus, and they can't even see the driver who's behind a curtain. Alex is getting motion sickness and may join the vomit count soon. He's turned yellow, is trembling, and getting ready to spew, but Harry suggests he tries singing a song because that seems to cure his motion sickness, which I've never heard of before. That would have been a good strategy to know considering I grew up with a younger sibling that was always getting carsick. Alex also apparently has perfect pitch, according to his music teacher, so he's fairly serious about singing. I have an awkward story involving perfect pitch. In college, there was a girl in class who informed us all that she had perfect pitch, and one time we got paired together for a community project. She picked me up in her car and was playing the most god-awful music. It was like somebody singing super high notes to where I couldn't even understand what the lyrics were saying. I almost said something, but thankfully I didn't, because the music ended up being her singing. So this girl drives around listening to her own perfect pitch music. I'm glad I kept my mouth shut, although someone in her life needs to break the news that perfect pitch doesn't automatically equal good. Anyways, back to Alex and Harry. Alex is belting out the Beatles because Stein has boomer energy and refuses to have his characters listen to any modern 90s music. We learn that Harry and Alex are arriving midsummer to the camp because their parents waited to the last minute to send them, so Camp Spirit Moon was the only camp that had any openings this late in the season. I never went to camp as a child, but I imagine it would suck to arrive late after everybody's already made friends. The bus screeches to a halt, and then Harry and his brother are left in the woods alone with vague instructions on how to get to the camp. I love the idea of this bus driver just kicking these kids out and being like, "Wander through the woods alone, it'll be fine, I promise." I also have to say, I do like that Harry and Alex seem to get along. I mentioned a few videos back I was tired of the siblings always hating each other in some of these later books. They reach the camp fairly quickly, and it's sounding a little bit like Camp Crystal Lake, so these kids better be on guard. It's very quintessential camp with little cabins surrounding a lake, campfires, tennis, archery, and baseball. This is all good for a couple minutes as Harry and Alex get excited to join the camp, when Harry suddenly realizes he can't see anyone and assumes it must be abandoned. They wander the empty camp and are getting increasingly worried that maybe everybody already left for the summer, when they are startled by a redheaded counselor named Chris, who seems to have appeared out of nowhere. Chris was supposed to meet Harry and Alex but lost track of time picking up firewood. Chris then gives us the same scare from a chapter ago, when he tells the brothers that everybody left and it's just them three at camp now. It's of course just a prank, bro, and the rest of the campers are out hiding in the woods because it's apparently tradition to hide from the new campers to scare them. That seems like a lot of work for very little payoff. We then meet Uncle Marv, who immediately reminds me of Uncle Al from Welcome to Camp Nightmare. Uncle Marv runs the camp, and Harry describes him as a grizzly bear of a man. He's also so loud that Harry wants to cover his ears when he starts talking. Uncle Marv shouts into the woods for the spirits to come out, because I guess that's what these people call themselves here. The spirits have a special greeting that involves putting their left hand on their nose and then sticking their arm straight out, but I'm not sure I'd be given a straight arm salute given the current climate. Uncle Marv then gives the boys a vague warning about the welcoming campfire, where they'll be put to the test and learn about Camp Spirit Moon's other traditions. This sounds like an opportunity for hazing, and Harry is rightfully nervous. Alex is excited though, because he thinks a campfire is bound to have lots of opportunities for singing. Uncle Marv shows him to their cabin and then ominously says, "Have a great time here, if they survive campfire tonight." Once Uncle Marv is gone, the boys start unpacking when Harry notices strange sticky blue puddles all over the room. He accidentally steps in one and can't get his shoe out of it. Alex doesn't seem concerned about the blue slime and dismisses it as another prank tradition. But when Harry touches the blue slime with his fingers, it's ice cold and sends a chill through his whole body. We don't get to investigate the slime any further because Uncle Marv appears again and summons the boys to the campfire. At the fire, they see all the kids in matching uniforms that consist of white shorts and white shirts. Putting a bunch of kids in white for a summer camp seems like a poor choice to me. It's time to roast hot dogs, so everybody lines up and we're introduced to Lucy, who is a girl around Harry's age. She has dark hair, dark eyes, and is so pale she almost glows, which seems pretty ghostly to me. She takes a liking to Harry and helps him out with the hot dog roasting process. Lucy then gets even more ghostly when Harry drops his hot dog in the fire and Lucy just nonchalantly reaches into the fire and grabs the hot dog. This freaks Harry out and Lucy looks at him confused with her hand still in the fire until she notices he's staring at her hand and pretends to find the fire hot with a delayed reaction like, "Oh, that was hot." Lucy then has to literally shake the flames out on her hand while Harry's just staring at her like, "What the fuck?" He examines her hand and doesn't notice any burn marks. Lucy then tries to change the subject by quickly taking Harry over to get some hot dog buns. Harry sits at a table with Alex, who's already made a friend named Elvis, who just so happens to be just as passionate about music as Alex is, and they share the same cabin. Before Harry has a chance to tell Alex about Flame and Lucy, Uncle Marv summons everybody to the campfire. They start singing the camp song, which seems to mostly just consist of, "We have the spirit and the spirit has us." It sounds very churchy. Alex doesn't know the words, but that does not stop him from singing as loudly as possible just to show off his perfect pitch. Harry needs a break from the heat of the fire and this never-ending song, and so as he backs up to the woods, we're treated to a shoulder scare. When Harry turns around, he finds Lucy begging for help. Before he can find out why, they're interrupted by Uncle Marv, who shouts, "No sneaking off in the woods." This embarrasses Harry and he sulks back to the fire. The mood suddenly turns somber and tense as Uncle Marv reveals he's going to share 2 ghost stories about Camp Spirit Moon. Harry doesn't get why everybody's freaking out so much because it's just a story, and he doesn't even believe in ghosts. The first story has a group of campers being led deeper and deeper into the woods by their counselor. The deeper into the woods they get, the creepier it gets, and the children start to become exhausted from walking for hours, but the counselor won't stop marching. When they finally stop into a clearing to set up camp, they hear a mysterious ka-thump, ka-thump in the darkness. They set up their tents and try to ignore the sound, but it keeps repeating a steady rhythm, and then suddenly it seems to surround them. The kids freak out, and the counselor admits maybe they went a little too deep when a voice suddenly booms, "Why are you standing on my heart?" The ground rises around them, and the kids are suddenly slid into the mouth of a giant hairy beast and swallowed whole. Harry starts laughing at the end, but then he looks around at the rest of the campers look terrified. But I'm with Harry on this one. I thought it was a pretty enjoyable, silly little story. Harry turns to Elvis, who tells Harry to stop laughing, because the story is true. Harry looks at Lucy, who appears to be also taking this story very seriously, and then Uncle Marv starts the second story about a ghost camp, which seems appropriate given our title. In this story, a group of campers are laughing and telling ghost stories when the moon is suddenly blocked out by black swirling clouds, and then the camp is engulfed in a fog so thick and intense that nobody can see anything. The fog clears and leaves behind all the campers sitting with blank faces and limp limbs, because they're all dead. Their spirits leave their bodies and continue on with camp as if they were still alive as a functioning ghost camp. That seems a little too on the nose for our current camp, so I suspect there has to be another layer of twist to this because Stein is not hiding how ghostly Lucy seems at all. Harry turns to Alex to see what he thought of the story, but Alex is pointing silently with a terrified look on his face as a dark cloud swirls across the moon. He stands up with Alex as the dark fog lowers to the ground just like in the story and begins to surround the campfire. Harry tries to assure Alex that it's just a coincidence, but I'd be running for the cabins at this point. The fog grows denser, and Harry notices that all the campers are staring at them silently as they disappear into the fog. Uncle Marv's voice rings out as he commands the campers to start singing the Camp Spirit Moon song, so Harry and Alex are trapped in wet darkness as they listen to a crowd chant, "We have the spirit and the spirit has us." I think this is an effectively creepy scene Stein has written out here. If I had read this as a kid, it would have put me on edge. Alex starts joining in the singing, and soon all Harry can hear is Alex's voice until that vanishes too. Then, just as quickly as it arrived, the fog vanishes. Harry looks around and notices that he and Alex are all alone now and everybody else is gone. Harry then launches himself into some pretty heavy denial and tells Alex they probably had a fog machine to pull off this big prank and are hiding in the woods now, but Alex isn't buying that. The boys race over to the cabins and then the kids all pop out like, "Surprise, we tricked you," in a massive "it's a prank, bro." Except I'm with Alex on this one and I am not convinced it was a prank. Once back in the cabin, he steps barefoot in one of the blue puddles, but doesn't bother asking any of his bunkmates what the hell the blue slime is. With the lights off, he's startled when 2 of the other campers, Joey and Sam's eyes, glow in the dark like flashlights. Harry again decides just to ignore this and forces himself to sleep, but just before he's fully asleep, he feels something cold and slimy sliding down his arm. This ends up just being Alex, and we aren't given any explanation on why his hands are so slimy. He can't sleep and he's worried about ghosts. Harry dismisses him and tells him to go to sleep, but just before falling asleep, he's startled to see Joey floating 2 feet above his mattress. These boys need to get out of this camp ASAP. Harry flies across the room and turns on the light, but Joey seems to be sleeping like a normal person now. The cabin members are all pissed he woke them up, and as he heads back to bed, he steps in another pile of goo. Yet once again, he doesn't ask anybody what the blue slime is. I find it highly illogical that Harry wouldn't ask anyone about the blue slime this late in the story, but whatever, Stein's clearly going somewhere with it. We hop to the next morning, and the boys finally get their camp uniforms, so they don't have to stick out from the rest. Alex tries out for the talent show, with a Beatles song and a Beach Boys song. Stein then makes a point to say Alex doesn't listen to current music and prefers music from the 60s, in case we didn't already notice that his characters consistently have an aversion to modern music. The entire camp is so impressed with Alex's singing voice that they go silent to watch him perform. They even think he's ready to release his own CD. Alex's friend Elvis then sings Heartbreak Hotel by Elvis, because of course he does. Elvis is the opposite of Alex, and his voice is actively painful for the other campers. Harry goes over to help some boys set up a tent, but starts screaming when he sees a sharp tent pole stick right into Sam's foot. Sam calmly yanks the pole out of the top of his foot, and Harry's amazed to see there's no blood or wound of any sort. Sam just shrugs and says, "It must have missed my toes." But Harry knows what he saw. We then spend a chapter with Harry restating all the ghostly events that have happened in the story so far. I've noticed a lot of these books dedicate at least one chapter to summarizing the books in case the kids have missed something. At the end of this chapter though, Harry is horrified when Joey suddenly stabs himself in the neck with a fork for no apparent reason. Joey's like, "It's a prank, bro," and yanks the fork out of his neck, once again leaving no mark. Uncle Marv appears quickly and tells Joey to stop horsing around. Alex witnessed the fork incident too, and seems to be very confused about this camp like Harry is. Harry eats his jello and notices Lucy lurking in the shadows of the mess hall, not talking or laughing with the other kids, just staring at Harry. A bat then flies into the mess hall and briefly causes chaos. I went to a wedding as a kid where very late into the evening, after all the adults were 2 sheets to the wind, a bat suddenly flew in and caused mass panic with a bunch of drunks trying to hit it with a broom. I remember thinking it was hilarious at the time, but now I kinda just feel bad for the poor bat. After dinner, the campers all march out to the soccer field for a boys versus girls night match. Once again, a thick fog rolls in, but the soccer game continues as normal. While watching the game, Alex confides to Harry that he saw something creepy at the lake earlier. While Alex was swimming, he saw a girl floating lifeless at the bottom of the lake, staring up at him with blank eyes. He panicked and swam to her and lifted her lifeless body to the shore, but when he reached the shore, she spit water in his face like it was just a big joke, but he was certain that she had drowned. Harry tries to reassure Alex that it probably was just a big joke, when during the soccer match, they suddenly see a girl's head literally get knocked off by a soccer ball. He races through the fog to pick up the head, but once he has it in his hands, it turns out just to be a soccer ball. But he is certain he saw both a head and a soccer ball on the ground. He decides to walk back to the cabin when he realizes somebody's following him in the fog. He spins around to confront the mystery stalker, but ends up just being Alex, who insists he also saw the girl's head fall off and nearly puked because he found it so disgusting. Harry then decides to go the denial direction and insists that the fog was just playing tricks on both of their eyes. They are then interrupted by ghostly howls in the fog that around them. The howls get more intense as the boys realize they're surrounded in the fog. They try to run away, but it's too late, the howls are right next to them. But once again, it's just a prank, bro, and it ends up being Sam, Joey, and Elvis. Once back at the cabin, Harry goes to bed, angrily repeating to himself, "I don't believe in ghosts, I don't believe in ghosts." And then we end another night with nobody asking what the hell the blue slime is. We hop to the next day and spend a few pages doing camp activities like swimming and writing letters home. At one point, Harry tries to chat with Lucy, but she just runs away from him. At dinner, Uncle Marv announces they'll be going on a night hike after everybody's done eating, and I was expecting this to lead to the climax of our story, but no, they go on a brief hike in the woods and then return to the cabins like normal. Just before Harry heads to bed, Lucy grabs him outside the cabin in the fog and tells Harry that they're all ghosts at this camp, and that she's a ghost too, and that she needs his help. Harry pretty quickly admits that he believes her because of all the crazy things he's seen at this camp. She reveals that she died just like in the ghost story, with a mysterious fog surrounding them all. Harry grabs Lucy's arm just to check to see if she's joking, and quickly drops it when it's so cold it hurts to touch. Lucy then answers the million-dollar question and reveals that the blue puddles are protoplasm, that results from ghosts using energy to make themselves visible. So it's like a type of slime that ghosts leave behind. I thought it was called ectoplasm this whole time. Harry then learns what Lucy has planned for him. In order to help her escape the camp, Harry has to let Lucy possess his mind and take over his body. That's a pretty big ask, Lucy. She says if she tries to leave the camp on her own, she'll just turn to mist and be a part of the fog. She promises that once she's outside of the camp, she'll leave his body, but Harry is rightfully unsure if he can trust her. He decides no, he can't help her, so Lucy decides to stop asking and proceeds to possess Harry. And then I felt something cold on top of my head. My hair tingled. I reached up with both hands and felt ice, as if frost had settled over my hair. "No," I screamed. "Lucy, no." The cold sank down. My scalp itched. My face froze. I rubbed my cheeks, numb, cold and numb. "Lucy, please," I begged. I could feel her, so light, so cold, settling into my body, sinking into my brain. I could feel her, and I could feel myself slipping away. Slipping, as if drifting into a deep sleep. She nearly gets him when he's able to fight her off at the last second by repeatedly screaming to stop himself from drifting off to sleep. He races into the cabin, and the other kids seem oblivious to what's happening, even though he was just outside screaming bloody murder, like right next to the door. He shakes Alex awake and flees the cabin with his brother, ignoring the other boys' questions. They race into the woods and run until Alex can no longer keep running. Harry tells him that everybody in that camp is a ghost and about Lucy. When Alex responds, he already knows. He then goes on to say Elvis told him and made him feel really cold. This isn't good news for Alex, but we don't get to learn anymore because the boys are interrupted by cracking sounds in the woods. They run deeper into the woods when they suddenly hear a deafening ka-thump, ka-thump. They try to escape the noise, but it's everywhere. A voice then booms, "Why are you standing on my heart?" They try to run, but the ground is shaking just like in the story, because they're probably still on this monster's chest. They then see a huge hairy head rise up in front of them with glowing red eyes. Stein's camp stories always get wild at the end, and this one is no exception. The monster opens its mouth, showing rows of jagged yellow teeth with a giant prickly purple tongue, and it's preparing to eat them when suddenly Harry has an idea. The purple tongue wraps around the boys and begins dragging them in for dinner. Harry then starts shouting, "We don't believe in monsters, we don't believe in monsters," because he thinks he can will this monster away with the power of his mind. This isn't working, and they slide down the monster's throat, but Harry commands Alex to keep chanting that they don't believe in monsters. Harry braces himself for a plop into stomach acid, but when nothing happens, he opens his eyes and sees that he and Alex are standing in the clearing safe and sound. Their excitement is short-lived though, because they're suddenly surrounded by the ghostly faces of the members of Camp Spirit Moon. Uncle Marv declares no one escapes camp without a ghost, because they need living kids to escape. Kinda like Lucy was trying to do. Harry tries to use the same trick he used against the monster, but Lucy is like, "That won't work, because us ghosts made that monster as a trick. We're actually real, so you can't just wish us away." Harry tries to fight back, but fails as Lucy begins to possess his mind. Except the other ghosts get jealous of Lucy and begin arguing that they want to leave too, which results in the ghosts all fighting with each other until they turn into a big old blur of light and then just disappear. The boys seize the opportunity and run towards the highway to make their final escape. However, in a final page twist, Alex is humming and singing to himself, but surprise, it sounds terrible, because Elvis is still possessing Alex, and he begs Harry not to tell and promises to never sing again. And that's how this one ends. Hopefully Elvis holds up his end of the deal and leaves Alex once they're free of the camp, but I have my doubts. Ghost Camp didn't get a direct episode pairing, probably because a giant forest monster at the end would have been a little tricky to pull off, so we're doing The House of No Return, which was recommended by Sora and Kyrie in the comments. I don't have a notable actor this week, because none of these 4 kids went on to do much TV and movie-wise that at least I can find, so let's just start the episode. This episode opens with Danger Incorporated, yes, that's the club name, inducting a new member.
Looks like Danger Incorporated is gonna have a new member.
How long has he been in there?
Exactly 10 minutes and 31 seconds. No! Doug has to stay in there for the whole hour.
A jump scare.
Somebody help me!
Well, it looks like Doug is not going to join the club after all.
Touch my face! Stay away, you guys! It's in there!
The joke is that none of Danger Incorporated is particularly brave.
Why don't you guys help me look for it?
Oh, just go get it.
Don't be a baby.
Smells like a trap. This is a reasonable response to me and why I would survive a horror movie.
Hey, you guys! Wait up!
Oh, here comes our actual protagonist.
Hi.
Hey, check it out!
He's that new kid.
These kids are all late 90s fashionistas.
If you're in Danger Incorporated, you have to be brave.
True.
No thanks, self-proclaimed school kids. I'll pass.
Do you want to join our organization?
Danger Incorporated.
We have room for one more member.
So we have a classic ghost setup, with a dead kid and 2 parents who went mad.
The day the police came, they entered the house. The couple were dead.
This child is easily tricked.
So is this a cool mall? Yeah, it's cool, alright. You sure this is the way to the mall?
Listen to this new kid in town, he's telling us.
Oh, so they're just gonna drag him. I see.
Now! Bye. Open up, come on! Open up! There's someone in here!
Maybe we shouldn't do this.
This is an effectively creepy old house.
Hello? Is anybody there?
It can't be a Goosebumps episode without some bats.
Go away!
Some ghostly special effects. This is better than the Cuckoo and the Cuckoo Clock of Doom.
Beware the house of no return.
Well, Chris is dead. Danger Incorporated to the rescue.
1, 2, 3. Chris? Chris!
Whoop, they're locked in too.
That is too weird.
Finally, we can see the ghosts.
To the house of no return.
Oh no, we wanted him stay. We love children.
Chris left y'all for dead.
If we let him go, 3 children would take his place.
Overall, I thought Ghost Camp was a pretty fun story that had some unexpected moments, like when the kids actually encounter a giant monster in the forest, and I enjoyed the ghosts enacting some body horror, with the arm in the fire, fork in the neck, and the tent stake in the foot. I also thought the ghost story with the swirling black fog was effectively written, and would have creeped me out as a kid. My only real complaints were it was pretty obvious that these kids were ghosts right off the bat, so it would have been nice to have a bit of mystery. I also thought it was dumb that Harry never asked about the blue puddles all over the cabin. I'm going to give this one 5 out of 5 globs of protoplasm. I think this was another solid entry in the camp-themed books. Okay, on to our totals. Ghost Camp didn't have any vomit, asshole victims, or it was only a dreams, but it did have a 90s moment. In Getting Jiggy with the 90s, we had one 90s moment. This was a mention of getting a CD of Alex's singing because it was just that good. Well, until Elvis got him. This raises our total to 143 jiggy 90s moments. We had 5 pranks in this story, although some were questionable because it was kind of like dismissing ghostly behavior as a prank. We had an entire camp hiding in the woods at the start, leaving Harry and Alex by the fire, a fork to the neck, fake drowning, and howls in the fog. This raises our total to 110 pranks. We finally saw the return of the shoulder scare this week, when Lucy startles Harry near the woods. Stein really kind of left this trope behind once they got later into the series. This raises our total to 20 shoulder scares. Ghost Camp had quite a few chapter cliffhangers with 17, and these were pretty solid throughout. This raises our Goosebumps total to 552. Our clunky cliffhanger award this week has to be chapters 10 to 11, where Harry is startled awake by Alex, only because it's really obvious when it happens. Shocker ending. Our big twist for this book wasn't the most shocking. On the last page, we find out Elvis has possessed Alex when he starts singing terribly, but Alex kind of already told us this happened a couple chapters earlier. This brings our Goosebumps series total to 38. Well, that's it for Ghost Camp. I thought this was the weakest of the 3 camp books, but still miles above the other books in this series, especially just coming off of Say Cheese and Die Again. Next week we have How to Kill a Monster, and I'm looking forward to this one because it's one of my top favorites as a kid, so I hope it still holds up. Let me know in the comments what you thought of Ghost Camp. What's your favorite of the camp books? Were you familiar with protoplasm? Do you think Elvis will actually leave Alex's body? Also, what did you think of my cabin horror clips this week? They were getting a little too heavy on the gore, it seemed like, so I tried scaling them back a bit, but I don't think I was very successful. Anyways, as always, thanks again for watching, and make sure you subscribe for
the pride, the love,